Okay, I'm going to try to give you all a lot of information as quickly as I can rather than drag this out like I normally do, as is my wont. Volume, for those who don't know, to get technical, is the amount of weight times the amount of reps. So if you're doing 5 sets of 5 with 135 pounds, then the total volume would be 25, that's the total number of reps, times 135. That's your total volume. So, the problem with concentrating just on volume for muscle growth and not accounting for the weight at all is simply that the weight is always going to feel challenging. People will say, well, yeah, of course, you do a lot of volume, you do high reps, but you use a challenging weight. But after a while, all weight feels challenging. Now, it is true that in order to accumulate a lot of volume, you cannot just do heavy weight, period, and leave it at that. Like you can't just work at high intensity with heavy weight, because doing so prevents you from doing many high rep sets. At the same time, you can't simply just pay no attention to the weights and just do endless amounts of sets, because the weight has to be challenging, and the weight will not be challenging unless you are actively trying to increase the weight. So if you're not actively trying to progressive overload to increase the weight, then all this volume is not going to amount to much. And you might say, well, the most jacked guys ever just didn't pay attention. They didn't write any weights down. They didn't write anything down, period. They just hit. And in fact, this is true. If you talk to people, even accomplished lifters, world famous lifters, a lot of them will tell you that, hey, early on, I got big and strong just hitting the gym and just doing whatever I wanted to do. Now, if that worked for you, you would be already doing it and not watching any videos on YouTube. So clearly that's not the approach that works for everybody. That's the approach that works for some. And it just happens to be the most jacked people are the ones who tend not to have to put a lot of thought into their training early on, or even at the intermediate level. So, that being said, you will just end up doing, to go back to our number of 135 and say a bench press, you'll do that for a very long time because it's going to feel challenging to you. But notice too, the same people we were talking about that got super jacked doing whatever are also usually very strong. Okay, they're not doing light weights, they're doing heavy weights. So if you're watching this video, you're not happy with your progress, or struggling in some way, or you feel that you could be doing better, or you're trying to accelerate your progress. And if that's the case, you have to make the weights more challenging. And if you just simply go off memory and you never write anything down or keep track of anything, you will do the same weights, workout after workout, month after month, and often year after year. So in that regard, you have to increase the weight. So whatever rep scheme you're doing, however many sets you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing, that must increase, not just the volume. So not just what 3D Alpha will say, oh, just increasing the volume is going to lead to muscle growth. Yes, in the short term. However, for overall long-term progress, there has to be what we call progressive resistance, which is not simply just adding more and more volume, more and more volume. So instead of doing 5 sets of 5 or 5 sets of 10 or 4 sets of 15 or whatever it is, simply increasing the sets, because that will get to a point where it's not sustainable. So I'm going to go back to what I was saying. You must increase the weight, and the only way to increase the weight regularly is to keep track of it. Now you can increase the weight, stay there for a while, but you must eventually increase it again. And that's just the way things work.